Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode of the J Rendina podcast. Today I have a special guest. It's our first virtual episode. We're diving into meeting other great practitioners, people who built businesses, and we're talking to you about their story. So again, I'm creating this podcast because I want to create a community that raises the standard of small business. Small business is the backbone of everything. So in this episode, we're talking to Dr. Leon Knight. He's also known as the Performance Doc. You can find him on Instagram. He has a ton of content out there. He's great at what he does. I went to school with Dr. Leon in New York Medical College, and I've known him for a long time, and I've seen his journey from where he started to where he is now. He has a clinic in North Carolina. We're going to dive into everything, talking about how to build a brand, how to build a clinic, the issues and the problems that come up when you're a business owner. And then we'll talk about the physical therapy field as a whole. So there's a lot of knowledge in here. We spent a lot of time talking about all those things. And Dr. Leon is an absolute gem. There's nuggets, and I hope you get some good benefit from it. If you like it, let us know. Share the show. Give us a like, comment. I'm trying to grow the show so we can really get more of the message of better small business out to the world. So thank you for watching. See you soon. Welcome to the show. It's the first virtual one. I appreciate it. Tell me about your origin story, man. Like, I know a lot of people listening to this aren't going to know how we know each other. Like, I've seen you grow since PT school and now, and it's impressive. So let's lay it out there. Like, what got you into PT and why are you doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think I'm a non-traditional. I took the non-traditional route, which is you major in something else, you work a little bit and realize it's not for you, and you do it as a second career. And so first career, so to speak, was in business, finance, retail, finance, and retirement services. So I was more like sales and so forth. And I was behind the desk, not as much interaction as I like to towards the end of my career with business. And then so during that time, I was doing personal training on the side, which I enjoyed, and realized that I enjoyed my part-time job more than my full-time job. However, my part-time job did not pay the bills, right? The way my full-time job did. So then it was right around the time where the recession hit in 2008, 2009. So I started making the decision, gather information. What can I do that's similar to personal training that allows me to be in front of people, helping them reach their health goals? But it is something that is, sustainable, something that is needed as opposed to wanted, or recession proof, I should say. And that's when I started looking into PT and what it took to get into PT school and how many more years and so forth. And if it made sense for me, because you got to remember by that time, 2008, 2009, I was about I graduated in 2005. So I was about 4 to 5 years out. So, by that time, classes start to not count, or you've been too far out. So plus I had to take prerequisite courses for sciences that I didn't have, which is a business major. But I was lucky. I was able to keep those classes in play when I went back to school and applied to grad school. And once I got into grad school, my whole focus was still how do I develop the skills necessary to own a practice. I still had a business mentality, but I didn't know what it was for. Was it for a service? Was it for a product? And that's why I think I was lost early on in business, right? I didn't know how to navigate what type of business I wanted to own. And so PT school was the means in order for me to own a business. And while I was doing PT, I was like, hey, man, I really love this. And I see how it has some parallels to personal training and how I can actually, really mesh it together and be different in a sense where I'm not just a clinician, but I'm a clinician that can do sports and conditioning, right? Or strength and conditioning. And so that was my avenue when I got out of school and worked for a year for someone. And I think we talked about this. And then I went out on my own. I can't remember. How long did you work for someone, Joe, before you went out on your own?
I worked for 2 years, 2 different places.
Okay. Yeah. So both of us were on that accelerated path in regards to deciding to take that leap. And 7 years later, in August, will be 7 years on my own, 8 years practicing. it was the best decision that I could have made. One of the most difficult decisions, but flip side is one of the most rewarding decisions
for sure.
I've ever made.
I never knew you started with finance. What got you
Yeah.
got you into that? I really never knew that. So I always thought this was your first career. I had no idea.
Hey man, I appreciate you thinking that I look so young. I appreciate you think I look young enough to say it's my first career, but my uncle who he's the first person that introduced me to like being an entrepreneur. He had opened a number of different businesses, whether they failed or not, that's a different story. But he always had that mentality that I'm going to create something, I'm going to own something, and in a way of giving back as well. So when I was in awe of him whenever he opened up his grocery store, this nice big grocery store in St. Louis with a partner, and we went to the grand opening. I'm like, man, this is different. Like this guy is opening his own grocery store that's competing against these chains, these chains that are already established. And so that I got a chance to pick his brain and understand his mindset as to, certain things that will stand out compared to those chains. And if you implement that and become someone that creates relationships with your customers or your patients, then that goes a long way compared to just just a big franchise corporation type of approach.
Mm-hmm. So he was like your inspiration to get into business.
Yes, right. To see business, pursue business, and then from there, I always had this idea that I want to own my own business, but I just didn't know what.
So when you went into finance, like where was your head at there? If you were like, I want to own a business, like what was your primary route that you were going towards?
Yeah, so finance, I was a financial advisor, to be honest with you. Like the first couple of years I was doing financial advising, and realizing I still didn't know, like in PT, when you graduate PT school, you get your doctorate, your entry level, but you don't really know anything. You don't have any experience. And so complex cases are challenging. Same thing with finance, right? Like I can have my different licenses to say that, yeah, I'm qualified to be a financial advisor, but I don't have any reps, so experience, nor do I have enough information that I haven't learned enough in order to really help someone that is, that is savvy, that has a significant amount of money, assets. So there was such a learning curve, and it was challenging. It was challenging, and I just realized I was overwhelmed. But my heart wasn't in that per se. Like I just, again, didn't have the same type of passion that I did for health and wellness when I was working with people, personal training wise. So that's what I did in finance, and then shifted to kind of like retirement services, still kind of same thing, investments, and just wasn't fulfilled, to be honest with you.
Yeah. How long did it take you to realize that though?
Yeah. So 2005 to 2007, I had odd end jobs, like, cause I had to take, my financial advising job, the first job, I was there for a month and a half at the most that I can't. Hey, Joe, you got to remember, man, back then they were asking me to do cold calls.
Yeah.
People that and then they'll say, here's a list of people I want you to call. And I would see, beside like Joe, your name, how many times you already have been called.
Yeah.
Right. And they want me to call again. Right. And so that, and then I had to play the game where certain restaurants, we have these fish bowls. And so we asked Joe to put his business card in to get a free lunch, win a free lunch. But everybody that puts a card in there will get a free lunch, because we want Joe to bring in 10 of his people so I can do this lunch and learn, right? I can present to them about my company, buy them lunch, get their numbers so I can keep calling them until like they tell me to stop or, or they come in.
So all the fishbowl was a cheat code? That's a cheat? That's not real?
What's that?
Fish bowls, that's a fake thing?
That's a real thing.
But I'm saying, like, you think you're going to be a winner, but everyone's a winner.
All right, I know. Yeah. Sorry. Yes, everyone's a winner if you're trying to build up your prospects. It's a numbers game, right? And so, I kid you not, I was like, this is not for me. Cold calling, fish bowls, and then just like this idea that, hey, you got to meet these numbers. Why are you getting people in? Think of selling them just anything. And so I knew that was for me. So I walked away. And I'm sitting up there with a bachelor's degree, and I went to be a camp counselor for a whole summer.
Wow.
Right. And then that I didn't have I didn't have any job. I didn't have a job after that. So when the summer ended, I was an after school counselor. I did all these things before 2007, where I moved to Charlotte and had a job with, again, my last company in finance, which was TIA Craft. And then I was there for 2 years until I was laid off in 2009 during the recession.
Wow.
And from 2009, that was my journey to get into grad school, because I had to take 2 years of prereqs.
That's a story right there, man. Do you remember any of the cold calls you made that were successful, or like one that's worth sharing? Because I feel like
I'm
that's
gonna be honest with you, man. None of them were successful. All of them, for the most part, all of them were like, either they did not answer, so I'm leaving a voicemail, or someone saying, I'm not interested. I thought you took me off the list.
yeah.
Right? It was one of those. It really was that. People get angry, but I can't. It's so long ago. I can't remember exactly, some of the stories, but I do know they were unsuccessful, and it made me cringe. Like every time I had to call during that part of the day, it was every day. A certain part of the day that was allocated just for that. If you weren't out there, having clients coming in, or if you didn't have clients coming in to sell them something, or you weren't out there doing lunches, you had a certain part of the day that was dedicated to calling. I just hated it.
Wow. Did that teach you anything though? Like, because I feel like I've never done that in any of my careers, but that's got to make you super uncomfortable and like it's got to teach you something, right?
Yeah, I think there's a learning experience in every experience, right? And in that case, I think most clinicians and that are trying to start their own practice, I didn't see it at the time, but getting used to people telling you no, rejection,
Yeah.
right? Being able to just bounce back, and not necessarily approach the next person or the next prospect timidly or like apprehensively, like to be like Joe say, nope, hey, get out of here. I told you don't call me again. You're like, all right, no problem. Hey, Sally, I'm just calling you to say, like, and you just don't lynch, right? That idea, or like, because I think it has helped me with the process of going to doctor's offices, different gyms, where chiropractors, people that are not always welcoming or willing to receive what you're trying to present to them, right? And so I think that has helped a lot. That short-term memory, that thickness that you build in terms of skin.
100%, man. I couldn't agree more. You did say one thing before I dive into, I want to obviously talk about how the performance stock was created, because that's amazing. But you said one thing about numbers, right? And how that's all they cared about. Now, do you think there's a balance? Do you think you as a business owner now understand the value of actually having some metrics in place? And do you even have that now? Or like, how do you balance that?
Yeah, that's a great question. You don't really understand it as an employee, numbers and metrics. I think in grad school, especially clinicians think, it shouldn't be about the numbers, shouldn't be about productivity. It should be about like the patient. Are they getting better? Are they receiving a certain experience, a quality of care, so to speak? But I think the metrics, what I've learned with the metrics, two things. One, as an employee, it's your report card, right? You have to some degree, have a component that says, are you being productive? Yeah, in addition, you can put professional. It can be this, it can be that, right? But there has to be a component that is measurable to say, are you meeting certain standards or requirements that we have as a business to justify having you on board? It's that simple, right? It's that simple as to, what's the ROI with having you here? Because I think as an employee, as a clinician, when I was an employee, I didn't get the fact, I didn't understand how much money is put in to hire, and how much time that you have to account for in terms of that being an expense. What you have to do credentialing to get someone in, right? To get them on board. And then also, until they start seeing patients, if you don't have a ready caseload, you're paying them to not see patients technically, right?
Yeah.
And so when you look at productivity and metrics, you're like, all right, man, I can eat that because I knew I knew that I was hiring a little bit ahead of revenue. But it's hard to eat when you feel like they're not helping you close that gap, right? Meaning like from not seeing patients to trying to see patients. And then second of all, they they almost feel entitled to like this slow bringing. There's like they almost don't see business in your practice as a business and more of like a pro bono clinic. Like I'm here to help patients. I want to be here and available to help patients, but the idea they don't really understand the idea that with you being there, not seeing patients, that's still it's an expense more so than a profit.
For sure.
If you're not breaking even, it's very challenging to not have that very difficult conversation with the clinician.
Yeah. Where do you think it starts in our profession? Why that's an issue?
Yeah, I think in school, business is not really taught much. So they don't get any introduction to the fact that this is a service-based profession. I get that. We're in this profession to provide a service, but this service, in order to provide this service and accommodate the demand, there must be a certain level of checks and balances when it comes to what I'm paying you and what you're seeing, right? There has to, and I don't think like the business 101 that could be taught in grad school and be exposure to these clinicians for them to understand, hey, there is a business side component to it. Because that's not being taught, then they come out thinking, hey, I just want to treat patients. I don't want any of that extra stuff. I want, this is what they come out saying. I want true autonomy. I don't want to do any protocols, and I don't want to work for a lot of hours. That's really what they're coming out asking. Plus, I want a certain amount of money in order to pay for my loan. So I don't want just the median. So those four things that they're coming out with are very challenging as an employer to meet, with them not understanding that on the flip side, can you help me? Can you help me help you? Right? Like that I'm gonna provide you this opportunity, but let's help each other in order to be able, one, you to do what you want to do, but more importantly, for me to be able to keep you as a clinician in a business that we're trying to have with a business that we're trying to create, which is a thriving business, not just a business that is losing money or breaking even.
Yeah, for sure. That's well said. And I think, for us, like for me, Iron Health, our vision is to create a community that raises the standard of health and wellness. And I feel like anyone who's in a smaller business is kind of aligned with that too. So
Okay, yeah.
we bring in these, PTs who have this one mindset of where they think they should be. But to be on a team that has people like us, it has to be very different, right? Like, so how would you teach them the difference between a clinic like yours or mine versus the traditional mill where they get burned out in a year? And I don't know about you, but like what I've been seeing is PTs who are working for a year and they're like, you know what? I don't think I want to be a PT anymore. And it's like, what the hell does happen?
Right.
So how do you tease that out, or what are some of the sacrifices you think they have to make to be able to succeed in a practice like ours?
Yeah. So in order to answer that question, I have to talk about the two different types, right? And so I have to go based on two previous. Well, let me go back. There's two people in mind that I have in mind, two clinicians that I have in mind. One that I have not hired, and then one that I did hire. So they come from a thought where, and I think we talked about a little bit, which was, you pay me to provide a service. So, hey, Leon, I'm working for you, and the return is you pay me a salary to provide a service for your clinic. That is the agreement. What is not an agreement is, if I don't have any patients on my schedule, the agreement is not for me to try to get patients, right? My agreement is not for me to be productive during my off time in order to get patients, right? So it's two different things, right? Like if I don't have anybody on my schedule, there's no agreement for me to do anything else with my time, technically, right? Unless I'm just to do notes. But the doing notes does not help bring in patients. The second piece is you didn't tell me how to do workshops. They're just not. Like, I'm here to provide a service when the patients are in the clinic, but to do workshops to get patients in the door, that's not the case. And then lastly, uh, this idea of working, being adaptable or versatile, more so adaptable, where there are times where we close early because we don't have patients, right? Right, like
Yep.
we don't stay open, but say the next day we have to come in early because Joe needs to come in at 6 o'clock. Are you willing and adaptable to come in at 6 o'clock and understand that you left early yesterday, right? Can you come in an hour? So they have trouble understanding. No, you told me you're gonna pay me for my service from 7 to 5. It's not my fault that no one's here from 3 to 5.
Mhm.
It's not my job to come in at 6 when my shift is at 7 to 5. Fill my shift up between 7 and 5, but don't expect me to change my shift to accommodate someone that you didn't pay me for. So like there's a rigidity with the people.
Yeah.
So for instance, but those are the people that, which are crazy to me, want to have the best salary, want to only see 8 patients a day, right? And because they don't want to get burnt out, they want to work-life balance, right? They want all these things. And to me, be honest with you, that patient that clinician that I just described is someone that will be best suited to work in a mill. They don't
Mhm.
have to see any patients. They don't have to get their own patients, right? They're going to have a set schedule. They can make the most money, right, in a mill, technically, right? Because these corporations can pay a little bit more, especially in the beginning, and their bonus structures are different.
Yeah.
But they don't want that because they want work-life balance. They want everything. They want they want the patients given to them, the most money they can make. Uh, they want to have a set schedule. They don't want to have to be versatile, and they want to be able to just check in and check out, work-life balance. But it's very difficult to get all of those things, and I think that's the hardest part. As an owner now, when you're trying to find these clinicians.
Mhm. So what would be the other person? Because you said there was two. That would be
Yeah,
one.
so you got that person. The second person is they'll say, well, I'll do that, right? But then they start trying to cut into your profit. So they'll say, well, why don't well, I want to be for everybody I bring in. Best way to put it, that second person is someone who doesn't want to take the full risk of owning their own, but but still is kind of like resentful for helping you build your practice.
Hmm.
Well, those are the people that you have to be careful of and leery of, because they are someone that if you don't have a strong non-compete and you're not willing to enforce it, they'll take your business, right? They'll use you as a basically a entrepreneur residency for a year or two, and then go out on their own, right? That's the other challenge, right? Finding someone who wants to be part of a brand but don't want to own their own and can see the bigger picture and wait their turn, right? These the second type of clinician that I'm describing is someone who wants it now, right? Hey Joe, this is what I can bring to the table. I want to get this cut. I want to do this. I want to do that, and this is what I'm gonna do for you. But in the meantime, I still want the full salary as well, right? Plus profit, and they want it within a year or two. And you're like, man, I don't even know if I like you. Wait, what, at the very, what are you talking about? Right?
True.
Can we work together first? Can we come back to this conversation 2 or 3 years where you've shown a certain level of loyalty, and you have now a resume, a book of business where I
Yeah,
can't turn you down at all because of the value that you bring. But those people are kind of, you got to be careful with those.
for sure. So who's your ideal person that you're looking for?
Ideal person. This is an ideal person. So I found that within that 2 to 3 years out, right? So they've had some experience, and they now know what they don't like or right, like, so they've had a base. So here's a good example. usually patients that come to me the first time don't really value or understand what type of experience and service that they're getting. So they'll cancel on you. They don't have any gratitude, that no true appreciation for what you do. So they'll go somewhere else, right? Out of convenience, if you guys don't work or whatever, or just show no loyalty, and then come back because now they have experienced what the other side is.
Yeah.
Same thing flip with a clinician, where if they're just coming out of school, they don't know what they don't know. And I don't want them to learn on my watch what they don't know, right? Like, so meaning I don't want them to think there's this, there's that, or they're not getting this or that from me. I want them to experience what the alternative is. And then they're easier to mold if they're only 1, 2 to 3 years out, because now they have enough experience where they got a chance to fail, right? But also have some wins where they can get 65 to 70% of their patients better. But they feel like they've outgrown where they are. They're hungry for learning more, but more importantly, being part of a team. Want some, and then they have a certain level. One of my values are competitive greatness. So they're striving to be good at what they do, whether it's a specific specialty. They're antsy by complaint. Like, they get antsy by feeling any type of complacentness from a company. Those are the ones that I like to pick up, because now they truly cherish and value a certain company, a certain practice, a certain culture, and they are more likely to know what they're looking for compared to someone that's, I just need a job right out of school. And then in the worst case scenario, someone that has been practicing about as long as I have developed habits, biases. You can't tell them nothing. They may see. So Joe and I may be working. Joe and I may have graduated around the same time, and so the idea of me trying to teach Joe's going to be less likely to accept that, because, like, what can you teach me? Either, whether it's clinically and business wise, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be like, well, why am I building this? Why I'm building that? What are you talking about? Like, there's too much questioning, too much, like, just, you know what I mean? And so those I really hold off on.
No, those are all good points, and I think it's cool that you're sharing that with everyone. I would agree too. Like, the person who is a little more than green right out of school is like ideal, and the ones that have experienced something. Like, I've had people with me who've come from places, and they're like, they know what we have, and they don't want to lose it because they understand what else is out there, and that is very important. But also, I also do like new grads. We will commit to growing them, and I know 12 to 24 months, a lot of them will turn over. It's a part of it, so we're okay with that. But you said something before, and I'm curious, and I don't think I've ever asked you this. What are your core values? And your clinic is the performance doc, right?
Yes.
Nice. And so once we dive into your core values, let's talk about that, because seeing how you built it, you've had yours before mine, and what you did online, and now what you have is amazing. So let's dive into that after your core values.
Yeah. So before I even start, I want to tell anyone that's thinking about owning their own practice, share with them a mistake I made, which was I didn't really have my mission statement and my core values, and my mission statement, core values, and unique selling point really carved out before I started. And it was kind of coming as you, just figuring it out as you go. But I think your core values tell you who you are, right? Your mission statement is going to describe what you do. And then your unique selling point is how you do it. Right? If you don't get those three down pat, then how the hell are you different from Iron Health? How the hell are you different from this big corporation, right? And so that was very important for me to to lock in on. And so as far as my values go, the values are they're so important because I make every decision based off my value. Everything that when it comes to my employees, the feedback that I give them, what I look for from them, and critiquing is all based on value. So it's never like you just pulling shit out your ass, right? Like it's just this is no, hey, this is why I'm coming to you, because you remember we tied it back into our values. But values are going to be energy. I believe in providing a certain level of energy that is infectious in the clinic that the patients can experience and feed off of. So we're going to meet them with energy, and that energy is, making sure that they're greeted, right? There's a certain amount of music, and there's music, uplifting music, upbeat music, and that's an easy win for us, right? There's a certain demeanor and attitude that we provide. Personalization, I'm going to make sure I know everyone's name. They're going to hear their name multiple times through the session, and on top of that, they are going to have an individualized plan of care. And I know that's kind of standard. Most people say that separates them, but truly, whatever your goals are, those are our goals.
Mhm.
If your goal is not to walk, if your goal is to, I'm gonna make this up, but let's just say your goal is I'm drawing a blank, but I would never just come up with like, I want your tug to be under 11 seconds. That's not a goal. If you told me, hey, I want to be able to do X, Y, and Z, or get up and down with my on the floor with my kids or my grandchildren without falling, because I have a history of falling, then my goal is going to be something simple as that, right? It's very personalized. My next one is results orientation. So I'm very results oriented, right? I think there has to be a component of that, right? We don't want to be considered nice clinicians. We want to be considered good clinicians. And good clinicians separate themselves because they get people better. Nice clinicians you hang around with, and eventually you hope by being around them for a certain amount of time, you get better, right? But I'm talking about a good clinician that actually is the cause and the effect of you getting better. Not all the time, but most of the time you want that to be the case. And then trust. So there's a certain level of, hey, we have your best interests at heart. You can come to us as a direct access. And if I can't get you better, Joe, I'm definitely going to be able to send you to someone, refer you to someone that I think will get you better, because I have a network that I trust and kind of share some of the same core values that we have. So trust us. And we're not going to look, if we feel like we're not being helpful, or we'll definitely refer you out. Like there's no hidden agenda in that instance. And competitive greatness is my last one, which I mentioned earlier, where, hey, we're always striving to be better individually. So therefore, as a collective unit, we're better. So my techs, every month the techs, or I think every time we have a staff meeting, it's not always every month, but we try to. We talk about, we give them a word of the month, right? So for instance, my front desk manager, her word is opportunistic this month. Last month it was mastery. She was learning how to like print reports and stuff, and have these financial reports prepared for us. So mastery, I want her to get better at that. So that's the competitive greatness. Now it's opportunistic. That we looked and we saw that there were times where we would get these referrals from doctors, and for whatever reason, there were bad numbers, or we were out of network, and she didn't convert them. But I want her to be opportunistic in the sense where now, if there's a bad number, I want you to call back the doctors that they went to and see if there's a different number, right? Oh, they were out of network, but did you push the free consultation? So therefore, we can at least see what their benefits are and compare them to in-network, out-of-network. Let them come in so we can sell them. Let us sell the service, right? And so let's decrease that number in which people are falling off and not even get into a consultation at the very least, right? And so that competitive greatness, if it's a clinician, let's time management. Let's get better with our time management. There's this, the changeover from patient to tech, like well, let's get that better, right? So those are my values, and I really go based off those.
Those are awesome, strong values, man. And it's do you also bring those to your personal life? Is that how you run your personal life too?
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought of it that way. I should be a little bit better that way, but my personal life, I would say Yeah, to some degree. Like I never thought that. I don't want to make anything up on the spot, but I never thought about it that way. But yeah, I think those values have allowed me to objectively evaluate everyone on the staff. So it's less of this like you just Joe, you just like Joe feeling that I'm being it's a personal attack, right? You don't know where I'm coming from. No, this is where I'm coming from. I realized like, hey, when you're on your phone, how are you able to give the energy when they walk in the door when you're on the phone? By and greeting them with energy in their name when you're on the phone. You're distracted. So therefore the experiences, because the values shape the experience. That's all it does.
True,
Right?
man.
That's
Yeah,
it.
we had, and the reason I asked that question too is because I recently went through a reevaluation of my values. Like we had 9 values,
Okay.
and what I realized is that, for me to even recite them all was hard. So I know my staff is not reciting them all. You know what I'm saying? So we're switching it 3 solid values, and those are the values how I also live my life. So now it's embedded into who I am, and it's interesting because it's so wild. Like exactly like you said, making decisions on your values is super crucial because the people who align with them are going to stay, and the ones that don't, you got a clear picture to get rid of them, or they walk off the ship, right?
You're absolutely right. And I think looking back at some of the hires that didn't fit, like one in particular, I'm thinking about. She was the path of least resistance after a very confrontational clinician I had previously. So it was one of those like, oh man, this is great. I can relax. Like she just goes with the flow. But then I realized that she lacked competitive greatness.
Mm.
Right. And so, the competitive greatness piece, here's perspective. Within the 8 months that we were there, that she was there, not one time did she want to do continuing education. Or she's not, I take that back. I'm wording wrong, but I had to nudge her like, hey, is there any continuing education courses that you would like to take? You have $2,000 that you can use. And she's like, there's nothing out there that I can think of. Joe, there's always something out there that you can think of, right? And
Yeah.
there was like a complacency, a contentness, right? And what really set it off was she was out for two weeks for her honeymoon, and I started seeing some of her patients, and I realized she had got into like a protocol kind of autopilot type of plan of care from the discussion with patients, but also looking at the plan, the exercises and stuff. And again, that competitive greatness, would have said, hey, if you're stuck, let me reach out, let me find some resources, let me talk to Leon, whatever the case may be, right? Or you would have been like, hey, I got $2,000, let me at least go to one class, right? And there was no urgency. So that now looking back, it's like, yeah, she wasn't a fit. Period. Like, but now that competitive greatness was an added value. I would say like over the last 2 or 3 months, and I think that is the next. That value decreases the pool a little bit of clinicians that would be a good fit here.
For sure. That's an awesome value, and it sounds very cool. Competitive greatness. I love it.
Thanks, man.
It's a really good one. So the performance doc, we got night. Like, how did that start? I remember when you first started, you kind of like, I guess you tell a story. It blew up. Like, was Instagram first, like social media was first, and then your clinic? Like, what was that like? And then I guess let's dive into social media growth and then the difference between clinical growth.
Well, the performance doc. So as soon as if you're trying to start your own practice, you do everything you can to be visible, and any means that is free, you take advantage of that. And that's the advice that I took from someone that that I respect early on. So I did not have a Facebook at the time. I had deleted Facebook probably like in 2011, and then I wasn't on Instagram, so I really didn't have much social media prior to jumping on there, right? And so I jumped on there in 2016, right when I was getting ready to leave to start my own practice. And it started out as leon.knight.pt. That was the name. And I was just putting out information, putting out videos with the idea of showing what physical therapy could mean for you. I wanted you to see physical therapy as something that, like, oh yeah, that's different than what I'm used to or believe physical therapy to be. And that was more on like the athletic side, kind of advanced stuff that looked like exercise, true exercise, advanced exercise, as opposed to the standard, band work or things that physical therapy is known for, like ankle weights and so on. But and so that's how it all started. And then I got a chance to talk to someone, have lunch with someone who had a presence already. And he said in so many words, like, your name is the problem in the beginning. And I was like, oh, okay. And he said, because of the fact that leon.knight.pt, that tells the potential follower nothing about you or what they may receive from you. And I said, oh, okay. And then so he said, your name has to kind of share, it has to tell something about you, but also something that they can get from you. And he said something like the performance doc. I said, you mind if I take that? I'm just going to use that. I like it. And that's how I ended up getting my name.
Very cool.
And then from there, it was more or less, and he's right. When I went performance doc, I played off that. Like, so a lot of the stuff I did was like informative, but also performance related. It just allowed me to be like one unit with my brand, like being consistent with my brand throughout.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. I know that.
Yeah, that's and Instagram, I tell you, it's funny, man. It changes. It seems to have changed or shifted recently, but when I first came out, it was more like chronological order too. And so everyone saw it. It wasn't like, oh, if Joe doesn't interact with me, he won't see it. It was like, when I post, you see it. So I was posting 3 times a day,
Wow.
9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, every day.
Wow.
And then that's how I got like the momentum. And it wasn't as many physical therapy or like rehab specialists giving you information, where now the user or followers are kind of being pulled in many directions. So they said, well, who do I like the most? Meaning like they feel like they have know the best or have a relationship with, and like their content the most. So that's going to decrease the pool of people that are going to follow you now. And then so less of that growth now. I don't get that kind of growth now. And I've shifted a little bit about with the brand, but in the beginning it was more or less, how often are you posting and how hot can you get with a particular post? And then that's how you blew up.
Yeah, that's crazy. When you first started that, was your plans were still to open your own practice though, right?
That's right. And I would say it was simultaneous. I'll tell you this story. I started my Instagram in 2016 January, but I didn't really post much because I still was working for the other place, and I didn't want to really showcase them that much. But then when I went out on my own in August 2016, again, I wasn't posting that frequently. It wasn't until around October where I said I'm gonna take this serious, and so I decided to do that. It was like late September or early October I started like consistently posting. And Joe, like you will attest to this. Entrepreneurs their mentality is like, if they have a significant other, you either gonna come along for the ride or you're gonna get so upset that you're just gonna jump off. Right? But that's our mentality, right? Because there's a destination that we're trying to get to. And unfortunately, entrepreneurs are willing to lose relationships, friendships, like in order to get there. And so I never forget, we were on our honeymoon, Carrie and I, and we were in Jamaica, and we had scheduled a dinner, and we went to the dinner at that time. But I told you I posted 9, 12, and 3 o'clock every day.
Yeah.
And I had already committed to I'm going to do this, regardless if I'm on a honeymoon or not. And we're at this table, and she's sitting across from me, and she got very upset that I paused. Honeymoon now. We just got married to do that. And to this day, like she gets on me about that, but like she was upset the whole night. She was upset.
Oh man.
But Joe, you eat that though. And I won't tell anybody to do that, but you eat it.
Yeah, dude, you're preaching to the choir right now. A lot of people don't realize how hard successful entrepreneurship is. I should say that, right? Like you're obsessed about it. Like your competitive excellence, right? That's you. It comes out of everything you do, and that's who you are. Like mine would be growth driven. I'm so growth driven that if anything around me is not like that, I don't even want to be around it. But it's almost like a disease, entrepreneur disease. That's a wild.
It's bad, man. It's hard. Like it truly is it's our obsession, it's our addiction, and sometimes it gets the best of us. And it's good to have spouses or family members around you who really keep you in check or balance you. But they get it too, like and they accept you for who you are. They just try to make sure you don't like damage who you are along the way, whether it's physically or mentally.
For sure. So you don't go crazy.
Right.
So when you saw your Instagram blowing up, why did you choose to just say, I still want a brick and mortar spot versus saying like, I want to just leverage this online?
Yeah, I tried the online and I think I just did a poor job of like leveraging it. Like I didn't have the means still because my practice wasn't, growing at the rate that I wanted it to in order to really pull from the practice monetarily and start putting it into the online. Because I think in order to do online, I keep having this conversation with a mentor that I think is 2 times as hard as doing a brick and mortar.
Yeah,
I do because, but one, you have to really commit full time to it. You can't, and my issue has always been I can't commit full time to it. So, excuse me. So I end up burning out or just not being able to give 100%. And so, and if you can't give 100%, it's very difficult to be able to grow at the capacity that you need to grow for it to be worth you doing it and sustain it. Like these guys that are doing it, like Aaron LeBauer, or just in general, like Aaron LeBauer, these guys, great time. Like that's their job. they have like employees behind the scenes. Like they have multiple things in place, structure, right, in place where it can be ran as a business, right? It's not just a one man game. Let me do a couple ads. Let me share it on my story. Let me share a post here and there. Like you are doing that nonstop, and you're trying to be in front of Joe and other potential prospects over and over. You got funnels, emails, like you're responding to emails. You're trying to get them on the phone to close deals. Like it's like you're doing all this stuff, webinars, free this, free that. Like it's a lot of your time, and if you're unable to do so, then it's very difficult, and you're diminished. You get diminishing returns because you're burnt out. You're not able to put in what you need to put in. You're getting frustrated. Like it's just like this cascaded thing. So after doing a couple of things or having a couple of attempts, I was like, this is just not for me. And I went back and said, I'm going to specifically try to open up my, like really, really build my practice. And it wasn't until, and I don't think I've ever told you this, Joe, but I tried doing the 2 different locations to cover more ground, but that was a fail because it can't be in 2 places at one time. I'm either on the road, losing business, right? I'm not able to market consistently to both practices or both places, right? Availability is another issue. If I'm in one location, I can't. And so I quickly learned that until you have one practice fully, we're operating at full capacity, don't try to open up another practice. At least that's what I've learned. And it's been very valuable to me. And then because you put all your efforts into one thing. And ever since then, I've been able to grow my practice that you currently see now to where it is. And now I'm close to I'm not close to capacity, but I'm closer. And so the idea of now thinking about the next step was, do I go online again, try that route, or do I look to open up a practice, another location? I can have that conversation, that thought process, because now I'll be able to stop treating as much higher and that kind of thing. So
yeah,
that's where I'm at now.
Are you still full-time treating?
I am, and that's the other piece, right? Like, until I can stop treating full time, it's going to be very hard to put in any full time hours or more hours into the online. More importantly, to open up another location if people are still looking for me to treat.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, man. Getting them off the Leon juice.
Yes, yes. How did you do it?
I pull the band-aid off fast. Yeah, and
Wait, Joe. So when you say pull the band-aid off fast, you said, all right, next week, or if it's the middle of the month, by the end of this month, I'm only treating 3 days a week, 2 days a week. How did you pull it off fast?
yeah. So, well, similar to you, when I opened my second practice, I had to be at two places at once.
All right.
But that gave one of my leaders time to grow into the other clinic. And what I noticed was if I had time there, I was hindering the growth of the clinic because people would only want to see me. So there was a point where I was like, I need to remove myself and let it flower on its own. So it wasn't that fast in the first one. I say that, tongue in cheek, but the second one was fast because I opened in I think at the beginning of 2019, and then COVID happened. And then after COVID, I haven't been treating there since. So that was kind of a nice exit for me. And yes, you're going to eat into your profits, and sometimes I lose money, but it comes with that avenue of things.
Right.
It's what do you want to weigh against it? Like, for me, it's like, all right, well, if I lose money a couple times, hopefully I make it back in the next couple quarters. It's a different game that I'm playing.
Yeah.
But now I'm at the point where I have people who love me, but I'm slowly telling them, like, I'm leaving one of my offices in the end of August. So I'm already telling them I'm done, because then I have to go back to one of my other ones. But you see, I lose that now because I lost another piece. I'm always back in somewhere. So it's can I fully be gone? I think in time, once my systems are locked and loaded enough to the point where I can be. Yes. Right. But they're not there yet. Just, I don't know if they'll ever be there, right?
Yeah, you're right. And I don't mind treating a little bit. I just don't want to treat as much as I'm treating. I don't want to treat full time. And I think you're right. Like, I never thought about that, but I think Carrie has alluded to the fact that when you you have to remove your presence or decrease your presence in a clinic in order for it to grow, which is hard to think, right? Because you do everything you can to grow it while in the practice. So you see yourself inside out as opposed to outside in, like almost helping out from afar. And so that's the next step. And I think if I can, with my next hire, hopefully by October, that really helps me see that it can run on its own through the systems that we have in place, and allow me to put me in a role where I can market as much as possible, build the relationships, hit the pavement. And once I could do that, I think it's going to allow me to grow it to capacity without me being the feature.
Yep.
Then you can make the move as to online, or do you do another location?
Yeah. Yeah, because you can't just be the technician doing everything.
No.
Expect it to grow to the next level. You can't. It's hard. It's entrepreneurship is hard, man. I tell people, being an entrepreneur is not easy. It's not glamorous. And being a leader is not easy. That's like, people think, oh, I want to be a leader. It's like, you want to step into a leadership role, you need to understand that there comes a lot of responsibilities with that. People don't realize that. That's something that I'm trying to teach my team now. Like, the responsibilities you have as a leader 10 times than what you had as a regular person,
Oh, absolutely, man. And I think that's the hard part. And I don't have anybody in leadership yet. I'm trying to find the cornerstone therapist yet, who can be that guy, your right hand, right? And it's crazy. I was just thinking about this, how when I mean a right hand is that when I'm not there, I still feel very confident that if there's something that needs to take place, something that needs to be said, something that needs to be done, that I usually would do while I'm there, it's still done. Like
Mm.
that means you have full trust that that person is really stepping into your role and filling it. Maybe not to the exact degree, but enough where like stuff is not going to get missed, stuff is not going to, and stuff is going to get done, right? Like you just want to make sure, like, how about this? If I became undercover boss and I was like a patient, it will still be operating similarly as if I was there.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good way to think about it. I
Yeah.
think it will drop like 10%. It's still low, but yeah, you need to. It does, man. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You need to have your you need to have your presence cloned. So like, luckily for you, Perry works with you in your office, right?
Yes, that's right.
Your presence and her presence, even though you guys are probably very different, are similar to whoever you hire
Okay.
by proxy, because you know that's your wife. It just happens. Like my wife now is going to be helping us with our personal training department, and I know when
Awesome.
she's I know when she's involved and she's there, my presence is there because it's just the way it is.
That's right.
It's proxy. So you need to get like a couple of duplicates of your presence that have your, do have your trust. But it's always the hardest thing, man. It's always the hardest thing.
It is.
For your model specifically, and I know, you and I spoke about this, there's all this stuff about cash PT and people just taking money for PT. Like, what is your thoughts on that? And where have they changed over the years?
So if I understand correctly, like you're asking me how, can you repeat it for me? I just want to make sure I'm following.
So the models of PT out there, right? You have
Yes.
a lot of people who are saying cash PT is the best option. You have everyone who bashes like in-network clinics, right? You're starting to see out-of-network clinics or hybrids take the lead. But what was like your primary source, or the way you started versus like where you are now, and why a shift if there is one?
Yeah, so I dabbled in a little bit of everything. I started out with cash because cash is has the least amount of barriers to start. Like startup costs is going to be the least amount, right? Because you don't need a billing company, you don't really need an EMR at all, right? Like you can use Google. I forgot, it's a Google Suite or Space. I forgot like what I use, but it doesn't have to be anything glamorous, right? And then you just need a Square to accept payment, or in QuickBooks. But that's where I started because again, I didn't want to go into any debt to start my own practice. That's the first thing. And then second of all, I believe in starting small, right? That was my philosophy going in. And so that's what I did. And then there was time. So after that, I looked at, okay, how can I make this? Because there's different phases of business, right? You got startup to me, and then you have like you try to so startup, then you look to stay afloat, basically. So that's like you make it the first 3 years, just try to at least say you can pay your bills.
Mhm.
Then you have growth, that's where you're starting to get a profit. Then you look into hiring people, so that's scalability. And then also you look at like exit. How do you exit, right? And so that first year to 3 years, you're just trying to make it. You don't want to be part of that 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 of small businesses that's startups that fail, right? And so I had that in mind when I started looking into Medicare as my first insurance that I was going to start accepting. One, because there was a demand in the gym that I was operating out of. There was a retirement center right next to it, and they would come there and work out. And oftentimes they were like, "Oh, you don't accept Medicare." So for that very reason, I was like, "Well, at least I can do that. Let me look into it. What's the pay rate or reimbursement rate?" It doesn't make sense. And this was the first time that I had startup costs because I had to pay a lawyer to get a certain you got to get your operations stuff or whatever it is. Like you got to show that you're compliant, so to speak.
Yeah.
And they can come audit you to see if you have that book. Like it's just a book. You pay a lot of money for it. Book, it just sits there, collects dust. Make sure it's official though. And so when I did that, I was like, all right, that was my first time dabbling into like being insurance, like in network with someone, but I still was out of network with everyone else. And then slowly but surely, I had a couple like workers' comp type of companies come to me and say, hey, would you sign on board? They reached out to me. And for that very reason, because I wasn't in network with anybody, I negotiated my rates. So I said, I won't take anything less than this. And this is what I actually want. And with one company, I got what I want, which was the 120 right a session. And then the other one, I got 100, right? So I said, oh, now I'm negotiating. Like, this is great. Let me negotiate.
Yeah.
And then I started like looking into all these other insurances and seeing, okay, what am I willing to accept? What's the lowest amount that I'm willing to accept based on my expenses, right? What margins am I happy with? And so that's when I looked at these insurance companies, and Blue Cross Blue Shield was the next one because again, there was a demand, and this was the most popular insurance people said they had that I couldn't see. And so I started looking at what their price per units were and how many I would bill over an hour, 45 minutes. I was like, oh, well, this is pretty close to what I'm charging out in that, self-pay rate. So again, like made a decision, and then slowly but surely ended up being cash-based to kind of a hybrid where like you take some insurances, you don't take an insurance. And then about 2 years ago, I made the decision going network with everyone. So, but what I can tell you when you ask me like the differences in insurances and who I see benefit, if you want the least amount of hassle when it comes to insurance and the least amount of startup costs, then you should go cash rate. Just understand that there's a very low ceiling in regards to how much you can make, unless you are really sought out and you can charge $200 to $300 a session. You're gonna max out what you can make based on the norm of what you can charge, right? Geographically. And you're going to be the guy. So it's hard. You're going to build your brand around you. You are the uniqueness. The challenge with that is you always need new patients, right? You always need new patients. You're not going to keep them as long as you do with insurance base. It's just the way it goes. And then you have to get creative with other means of services, whether that's like writing programs, you're doing like personal training on site. Like you have to find ways to, I believe, to subsidize some of that income that you're gonna get from PT. If you're a hybrid, so I'll come back to hybrid. So traditional, but for cash, you keep that autonomy. Like you don't have to worry about protocols, insurance. You can get as many sessions as you need. Like no middleman, nobody else involved. In network, you're gonna have greater startup costs. You're not gonna but it's the easiest one to scale because you decrease as many barriers as possible.
Yeah.
I'm in network with all insurances. Let's rock, Joe. Which one you have, right? Yeah. You're gonna open the pool up, and then your sales pitch your sales pitch can be weaker than it would be in a cash base. You have to have a strong sales pitch with the cash based model, and a lot of clinicians don't have that. That's what makes it very hard for them to scale. And those are the ones that are always saying, "How can I fill up my caseload?" Right? Like they always have trouble filling up the caseload. But in network, you don't have to worry about that. Your reimbursements may be different. You may treat differently because you'll find that time is money. So this idea of one-on-one, counting Joe's reps as he does every exercise, talking to him when you could be seeing two people at one time, two people in the hour. So maybe Joe at 9 o'clock, his wife at 9:30. So you're making up a certain amount of money per hour. Then you start understanding that it can be done as long as you have systems in place and you feel confident as a clinician, right? That's going to allow you to grow faster, but more importantly, be able to build a true practice and brand where it's not just you yourself. Because when you start hiring people, you become more of a corporation of business as opposed to a solopreneur. Solopreneur is your cash-based model. Most of them. There's some that are multiple therapists, but that's not as popular to me.
No.
Yeah, that's not as popular. So, and then you have out of network. You know more about out of network than I do. I never was truly out of network. I've had some people, and I've gone through the out of network benefits where they had decent out of network benefits where they would reach their deductible pretty soon. But I still had to use a billing company. I didn't. You still have to use a billing company, um, but their reimbursements are better. So you say, hey man, um, once you meet your deductible, then they'll pay 50%. Right, you start negotiating all this stuff. Like, all right, they're gonna pay 50%. My rate is this, so if it's above that, then I'll accept it. If it's less than that, you pay the difference. Like, it becomes a little bit more like tricky, and it kind of comes off at times as, uh, I don't know, like you get like it's situational as opposed to just like what's my flat, right? Because every insurance is different. But that's another piece. I'm sure you can speak on that. And then the last piece is hybrid, where I promote hybrid. If you really want true autonomy, you're gonna stick to your guns where it comes to I'm only gonna accept this amount as my this is the least amount that I'm gonna accept, but you at least still open the pool of people that you can see because there's certain insurances that pay a certain rate that you will accept. So if you say, hey, every session has to be $100, then you won't accept insurance ABC because they have a flat rate of $70, right? So you just make it. Hey, I'm a hybrid. I'm a network with some insurances, but I'm cash for those that I don't accept. And then you just kind of keep it that way. You have sanity because you know what you're going to really get consistently, and you have not forfeited your time to a rate that you don't want.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a crash course right there on PT clinics. That was very good.
I guess
You learned
I've done them all. Really, it's crazy.
Sure, that's what it is. It's experience. How did you learn the in-network component? Because a lot of I know we didn't learn that in school, and I don't think anyone's learning that in school.
Right.
So anyone out there who's contemplating that or curious, like how did you learn it?
Yeah. So the crazy thing about it, what I said, it was curiosity that helped me learn it. I was like, let me explore this thing. Right. So I never knew how much they paid. You'll hear like, oh, they don't pay well. They pay like in New York, they pay me this. But I didn't know what the rates were in North Carolina. So I simply would enroll with, I'm just making this up, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they send me the application or the like the proposal of what everything would be, and I just have to sign it, right? But I didn't sign it. I would just see what their rates were per unit.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, oh, well, I do neuromuscular rehab. I do Therax. I do manual. I do Therac. Yeah, I do. Maybe gait training. Let me see what those would be if I said, oh, Joe was here for 4 units, 5 units. Let me add them up and see what makes sense. Oh, I usually build 3 units. Oh, I usually build 4 units. Oh, some people, my ACLs there, the last phase, I'll build 5 units. Then I do the math. I say, oh, well, this unit pays $21. It's pay 4 times 21. That's like a little over 80. Do I want to go that route? Right. Like you just start like making this business decision. Oh, what's my break even point? What's my margins that I want to keep? Like then you start saying, okay, this makes sense for me or it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they pay $70. Oh, they pay $60. Then no, that's a no-go. The
Yeah.
flat rate 60s. Oh no, I can't do anything with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Very true. Yeah, it's an interesting thing because everyone out there right now is all about that cash PT, right?
What are your thoughts on the cash PT, Joe?
I think
you can't be as big as Nike though. I know that much.
definitely can. I think you said it very correctly with if that's all you want to do and you want to be a solopreneur and just you, then do it. Like you could do it that way. But if you have any aspirations of scaling and not working on your business and not in your business, it's not suitable. It's not something that's scalable. You can't do it. And I don't think it's as glossy as people say it is. It's not. It's really not. You need to. We are PTs. We're doctors. We have the luxury of billing insurance, so we need to use that. We need to team up instead of us saying let's use cash. It's like no, let's team up and get better rates. Wouldn't that make more sense? Right.
Right.
Why is someone doing that?
You make a great point. I think the idea that, well, like, again, you made a great point, and I echo it, that you can't scale. There's two things you can't. You can't scale, and you can't sell. Like, what is your exit strategy? Like, for a cash-based model, I once you're done treating, unless you're going to go into teaching, what else? What do you have to? You still have nothing to show for all your hard work for the years in which you've had a practice. You can't sell it. I can't. Joe cannot sell me his practice that is only him after he's done,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Where did the patients go?
Right. So, what people are looking for, investors that are looking to acquire businesses, they want your NPI numbers, and they want those great rates that you've been able to build up over the years. Because you do get bonuses, not bonuses, but you get increases if you've been with them for a while. People don't see that either. You just gotta ask for it. You gotta go back. Hey, it's been 2 years. Hey, wait, Joe. It's been 2 years. And you see my track record. I should be a level this now, right? Level 2 provider. Like, you got to do your research. You got to know.
Yeah, that's very good.
Because they're not gonna contact you. Joe's not gonna contact me and say, "Hey, Leon, it's been 3 years that you've been with Blue Cross Blue Shield. You want that raise? You want to raise and raise?" Like,
good point. That's a good point, man. They're gonna keep their money tight.
That's right.
So let's close this up a little bit. If you have any closing thoughts on anyone, well, because your audience is like PTs or aspiring PTs. So what would you tell those younger people in the profession about the profession? And then let's do one about the profession, and then one, like, if any of them want to be business owners, what would be some closing thoughts?
I think as far as clinicians go, one thing I've learned is I think you should strive to keep things simple as a clinician, right? When you come out, there's a lot of things that you want to change, right? Because you do the research, you have all these influences. Now, I didn't have as many influences as they have now on social media that are telling me, don't stretch, don't do this, right? Like, there's so many things out there now that can influence the way you think and operate. But I would say strive to keep things simple. And so what that means is that ultimately, oftentimes, new clinicians come out and they use their autonomy. They use it as a way to be more creative. When they talk about autonomy, they want to be creative. They want to be different from a protocol. They want to reinvent something, or no, they want to reinvent the wheel, right? They don't want to say, "Hey, man, scrap that. Let's completely throw the baby out with the bathwater." And oftentimes, I think what happens is they make something simple complex, and they mess up. They make more mistakes because of that, right? And so, if you notice, Joe, good clinicians actually keep things simple, and they consistently get good results because they have a consistent approach.
Yeah.
Right? They have a consistent approach that has been tried and proven, but more importantly, they don't overwhelm the patient, nor do they overwhelm themselves with too much creativity. They think outside the box when it comes to personalization. How can I help Joe get off of the floor compared to Mary? But the strategy is still the same, right? The strategy is still the same. I may modify it, but I'm not coming up with a whole brand new exercise with bells and whistles to help you get off the floor, right? And so that's what I would tell clinicians. The second thing I would tell clinicians, I know you told me one, but the second thing I would tell clinicians is don't be in a rush to accelerate your growing phase, which is when you first get out, your learning phase, like the mentoring phase. Don't be such in a hurry to say, I'm ready to just go out and do this on my own. Look at the next 1 or 2 years when you get out of school as an extended period of time for lab time. Right? My first job was basically extended period of lab because it didn't count towards my business. So I didn't necessarily have to really get these patients better, right? and I was getting paid for it. And so it's the perfect time to like learn, explore, seek these mentors, right? Because once you get to like 3 years, 3, 4, 5, people are less likely to still want to still be open to learning. They
Mm.
start developing their way, their approach, their biases, and they become more rigid. So extend that time in the beginning to be less of that, to be molded, to learn, experience, and then um, kind of try to make things simple, streamline things. But oftentimes they're either coming out of school with, yeah, I only focus on loading. I just load everybody. I don't like they manual therapy only. Like they become so like it's almost like they choose a sport. You know how they tell you the kids don't choose a sport too early, like do football, basketball. Like I want them to still do that in the first 3 years, as opposed to like, you know what? I only play baseball, dog. 4 years old, play baseball the rest of my life. You know, like can't be
That's a good
doing that.
analogy. I like that.
Yeah. And then as far as clinicians go, I want to keep it, not clinicians, possible business owners, keep it very simple for them. Owning a practice, you already mentioned it, is very difficult. Very difficult. Be willing to do any and everything um, to build a practice, grow a practice, and sustain a practice. And understand that it takes money to make money, meaning it takes you to invest money to make money. That's the one thing I think that's not taught enough is people will like to pull Joe and myself to the side and say, "Hey, can I ask you a couple questions?" Like they think that is like, you made it. Can I ask you? No, no. Like at this time, our time is valuable, right? And we'll give you a couple nuggets, but the idea of getting by with just keep asking people, no, structured mentor that's tailored to where you're trying to go is very important. So invest. If you're truly serious about owning it and starting a practice, you need to invest. And then lastly, think like an entrepreneur, but treat like a clinician. That's the mentality, right? Don't treat like a clinician and operate like a clinician because you will be out of business.
Mm. That's very, very valuable stuff, man.
Yeah.
So, I mean, thanks for this. This was great. If anyone wants to get more information about Leon, he's at the Performance Doc, right? That's all your social
Yeah,
media.
that's it, man. That's it.
Let's check him out. I mean, I hope you guys got value in this, and don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions. And Leon, man, thanks for your time. This was really, really cool. And I selfishly learned so much when I'm talking to people too. So it's good for me to have these experiences. So thank you.
Hey, Sam, man, I'm gonna pick your brain anytime we're on the phone too. So thank you, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm glad we reconnected last week. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's stay connected.
Hey, deal, man. We'll do. I promise that.
All right. All right, buddy.
All right, man.
Later.
Hey, Joe, we're off.
Yeah.